Behind the rainbow and yellow brick road lies a production filled with chaos most fans never imagined. A teenage star pushed to extremes by studio executives. Costumes so dangerous they sent actors to hospitals. Deleted scenes that nearly erased the most iconic song in cinema history. The Wizard of Oz dazzles audiences with its magical charm, but the reality behind the cameras tells a far darker story. From toxic makeup to hazardous special effects, the cast endured conditions that would shock modern viewers. These secrets reveal the hidden price paid to create this beloved classic. What happened to young Judy Garland before filming even began set the tone for everything that followed. Number 1. Judy Garland's extreme diet rules. Studio executives demanded perfection from their teenage star, and they used brutal methods to achieve it. MGM placed 16-year-old Judy Garland on a severely restricted eating plan designed to keep her looking as young and thin as possible. The system went far beyond simple calorie counting. Monitors followed her throughout the day, tracking every meal and snack. The pressure became overwhelming as producers constantly reminded her that her career depended on maintaining a childlike appearance. She faced criticism if her weight fluctuated even slightly during production. This harsh treatment left lasting damage that extended well beyond the film's completion. The studio's obsession with control shaped not just her performance, but her entire relationship with food and self-image. What began as demands for a specific look transformed into patterns that would haunt her for years. The girl skipping down the yellow brick road carried burdens no teenager should bear. Number 2. Lion costume, heat and real fur hell. The cowardly lion looked adorable on screen, but wearing the costume felt like torture. Burt Lahr spent months trapped inside a suit, constructed from genuine lion pelts weighing over 60 pounds. The material trapped heat against his body with no ventilation. Technicolor filming required massive lighting equipment that raised set temperatures past 100 degrees. Lahr sweated so heavily that the costume became soaked within hours. Crew members had to hang the entire outfit each night just to dry it out for the next day's shoot. Between takes, Lahr could barely function in the oppressive heat. He gulped down water constantly and needed frequent breaks that slowed production. The physical toll of performing comedic scenes while overheating and exhausted pushed him to his limits. His iconic performance came at the cost of genuine suffering, hidden beneath fake fur and makeup. Number 3. Disturbing Munchkin behavior on set. Munchkin Land appears delightful in the final film, but filming those scenes created an uncomfortable atmosphere. More than 100 little people were hired for the elaborate sequences, and their behavior toward the young star became problematic. Some actors made inappropriate advances that left Judy Garland feeling vulnerable and unsafe. The chaotic environment during these shoots proved difficult to control. With so many performers crammed into tight spaces, supervision became nearly impossible. Reports describe unpredictable conduct that turned what should have been magical moments into sources of stress and anxiety. These troubling experiences became part of Hollywood folklore, whispered about for decades. The production team struggled to maintain order while capturing the whimsical scenes audiences would eventually love. What looked like innocent fantasy on screen masked tensions that made the teenage actress deeply uncomfortable throughout filming. Number 4. Ruby Slippers theft and FBI sting. Those sparkling red shoes became more than movie props. They turned into targets for criminals. MGM created multiple pairs of ruby slippers during production, but several vanished from studio storage after filming wrapped. For decades, their whereabouts remained mysterious. The most famous theft occurred in 2005 when someone broke into a Minnesota museum and stole one of the surviving pairs. The crime launched an investigation that dragged on for 13 years with no arrests. Rumors swirled about inside jobs, private collectors, and black market deals involving one of cinema's most iconic artifacts. Finally, in 2018, the FBI orchestrated a dramatic sting operation that recovered the stolen slippers. The operation revealed a complex web of theft and deception surrounding these legendary props. Even after the recovery, questions lingered about other missing pairs and whether all the ruby slippers would ever be accounted for. The magical shoes that carried Dorothy home had become evidence in a real-world crime saga. Number 5. Drug-fueled studio work demands. Hollywood studios pushed their young stars through punishing schedules using chemical assistants. MGM executives handed out pills to keep actors alert during endless filming days that stretched late into the night. When exhaustion finally hit, they distributed different medication to help performers sleep quickly. Judy Garland and other contract players faced nearly impossible workloads that required artificial energy. The studio treated these substances as normal tools of the trade, rather than dangerous interventions. Actors sometimes worked for days with minimal rest, sustained only by whatever the studio doctors provided. This practice created dependency issues that followed performers long after cameras stopped rolling. The industry operated on a system that prioritized production schedules over human health and well-being. Young stars had little choice but to comply if they wanted to keep their careers. The pills that powered marathon filming sessions came with hidden costs that wouldn't fully emerge until years later. Number 6. Costumed actors banned from lunch. The main cast faced an unusual form of isolation that had nothing to do with their performances. Studio policy prohibited the Lion, Scarecrow, and Tin Man from entering the MGM cafeteria while in full costume and makeup. Other employees complained that their elaborate appearances were too disturbing to see during meals. This rule forced the actors to eat alone in separate areas or grab quick snacks between setups. They couldn't enjoy normal lunch breaks like the rest of the crew. The policy created a strange divide that made them feel separated from everyone else on the lot. Being banned from shared spaces added an emotional burden to the already difficult physical demands. The performers spent hours in uncomfortable costumes, then had to endure eating in isolation. This petty restriction revealed the studio's rigid hierarchy and lack of consideration for the actors bringing beloved characters to life. Even small moments of normalcy were denied to those trapped beneath layers of makeup and prosthetics. Number 7. Tin Man's near-fatal makeup poisoning. One casting change happened for terrifying reasons that nearly cost an actor his life. Buddy Ebsen originally landed the role of the Tin Man and began filming his scenes with enthusiasm. The aluminum-based makeup seemed harmless at first, but it concealed deadly dangers. Within days, Ebsen experienced severe breathing problems as the metallic powder coated his lungs. His condition deteriorated rapidly until he collapsed and required hospitalization for respiratory failure. Doctors fought to save him, as his lungs struggled to function normally again. MGM quietly recast the role with Jack Haley and continued production without missing much time. The studio switched to a paste formula instead of powder, but never publicly acknowledged how close they came to killing their original Tin Man. Ebsen's voice still appears in early recordings of songs from the film. This remains one of the most dangerous makeup accidents in cinema history, hidden behind the metallic gleam of a beloved character. Number 8. Winky Guard's painful miscasting. The imposing soldiers marching through the witch's castle suffered through their scenes in ways viewers never suspected. Production hired mostly inexperienced extras to portray the towering Winky Guards, then stuffed them into oversized boots and heavy armor. The performers received minimal training before filming complex marching sequences. The lack of preparation led to constant accidents on set. Guards tripped over their own footwear, twisted ankles, and crashed into each other during takes. The awkward, stiff movements that appear somewhat menacing on screen actually resulted from actors struggling to stay upright in ill-fitting gear. Filming these sequences became exhausting for everyone involved. The extras endured long hours in uncomfortable costumes, while trying to execute choreography they barely understood. Their suffering rarely gets mentioned when discussing the production, but background performers paid a real physical price. The synchronized marching that looks impressive in the final film came from countless painful attempts by people just trying not to fall down. Number 9. Wicked Witch's toxic green makeup. Margaret Hamilton created one of cinema's most unforgettable villains, but her transformation came with serious health risks. The bright green makeup covering her face and hands contained copper-based ingredients that irritated and stained her skin. Each application took hours and caused burning sensations that persisted throughout filming. Removing the makeup proved just as painful as putting it on. Hamilton's skin required lengthy recovery periods after each day of shooting. She had to avoid eating normally during filming because chewing would crack the carefully applied layers and ruin continuity between takes. The toxic formula left lasting marks that took weeks to fade completely. Hamilton endured this painful process repeatedly to bring the Wicked Witch to life. Her commitment to the role meant accepting chemical burns and skin damage as part of the job. The cackling green villain, who terrified generations of children, came at a real cost to the actress hidden beneath the poisonous paint. Number 10. Asbestos snow in the poppy field. That beautiful snowfall that wakes Dorothy from her enchanted sleep contained a silent killer. Special effects teams used real asbestos fibers to create the magical winter scene in the poppy field. The white material looked perfect, falling gently through the air and coating the flowers. Nobody understood the cancer-causing properties of asbestos during production. Judy Garland, the dog playing Toto, and other cast members were covered in carcinogenic particles without any protective equipment. They breathe in the fibers and brush them off their skin between takes, completely unaware of the danger. Hollywood regularly used asbestos for snow effects throughout the era, because it looked realistic and didn't melt under hot lights. The industry continued this practice for years, before medical science revealed the deadly consequences. That iconic scene of Dorothy surrounded by falling snow represents one of many risky shortcuts studios took to create movie magic without considering long-term health effects. Number 11. Toto the Terrier's set shenanigans. The little dog brought unexpected challenges that tested everyone's patience during production. Terry, a female Cairn Terrier playing Toto, had her own ideas about following directions. She frequently wandered off during important takes or refused to stay in position when cameras rolled. The canine performer developed a strong attachment to Judy Garland that created continuity problems. Terry would cling to her co-star at unexpected moments or ignore cues from trainers. Crew members invented creative solutions to keep the dog focused, including strategic placement of treats and familiar handlers just off camera. Despite the frustrations, Terry earned more money per week than many human actors on set. Her $125 weekly salary exceeded what some supporting cast members took home. The tiny scene stealer added charm to every moment she appeared on screen, even if getting those moments required endless patience. Her antics provided lighter moments during an otherwise difficult production, though directors probably didn't appreciate the delays at the time. Number 12. 5 directors shaped the film. An unprecedented number of filmmakers guided this production through its troubled journey. Norman Taurog handled early screen tests before Richard Thorpe began shooting the initial footage. When executives disliked Thorpe's approach, George Cukor arrived to correct the tone and visual style. Victor Fleming took over as the primary director and shaped most of what audiences eventually saw. He brought the vision that defined the film's final look and feel. King Vidor stepped in near the end to handle all the Kansas sequences, including the opening and closing scenes in black and white. This constant rotation of leadership threatened to create a disjointed mess. Each director brought different ideas about how characters should look, act, and sound. The fact that the finished product feels cohesive despite 5 different creative voices remains remarkable. Most productions struggle with even one director change, yet this film survived multiple shakeups and still became a masterpiece. Number 13. Grueling Technicolor lighting heat. Early color cinematography demanded brutal conditions that punished everyone on set. Technicolor cameras required massive banks of lights that generated intense heat. Set temperatures regularly climbed past 100 degrees as the lamps burned for hours during complicated setups. Cast members fainted under the relentless assault of heat and brightness. The heavy costumes made conditions even worse, trapping body heat and creating dangerous situations. Performers struggled to deliver their lines while sweating profusely and fighting exhaustion from the oppressive environment. The technical demands of color filming meant longer takes and more repetition than black and white productions. Actors couldn't escape the heat between shots because lighting adjustments took considerable time. The vibrant colors that made the film so visually stunning came at the price of physical suffering. Every beautiful frame required the cast to endure conditions that would violate modern safety standards. Number 14. Skywriting stunt explosion. A spectacular special effect nearly killed the stunt performer who brought it to life. Betty Danko doubled for the Wicked Witch during the famous Surrender Dorothy skywriting scene in the sky above the Emerald City. A special effects pipe mounted under her broomstick was designed to release smoke for the magical writing effect. During filming, the pipe suddenly exploded with tremendous force. The blast injured Danko and sent her to the hospital with serious wounds. The accident happened completely separate from Margaret Hamilton's well-known fire accident in Munchkin Land, though both incidents involved dangerous pyrotechnic effects. Stunt performers faced extreme risks throughout production, with minimal safety protocols. Danko's explosion demonstrated how quickly technical effects could turn deadly. The brief moment of skywriting that appears so magical on screen came from a hazardous stunt that left a performer hospitalized. Audiences marveling at the witch's airborne threats had no idea someone nearly died creating that particular shot. Number 15. The vanished Jitterbug scene. A major musical sequence disappeared from the film and remains lost to most viewers. The elaborate Jitterbug number featured all 4 main characters performing a lengthy dance routine. The scene was fully filmed, choreographed, and scored with considerable expense and effort. Studio executives decided the sequence slowed down the story's pacing and removed it entirely. Only fragments survive today: script pages, audio recordings, and a brief reference the witch makes that no longer connects to anything. The deletion left a mysterious gap that fans have pondered for decades. Removing such an expensive, completed sequence shows how ruthlessly studios could edit their own work. The lost number represents a significant piece of missing history that would fascinate modern audiences. Occasional rumors suggest footage might exist in private collections, but nothing substantial has ever surfaced. That vanished dance remains one of the film's greatest mysteries, a fully realized creation erased from the final version. Number 16. Over the Rainbow, almost cut forever. The most iconic song in the entire production nearly vanished before audiences could hear it. Studio executives watched early cuts and decided the ballad slowed down the opening too much. They ordered it removed completely, believing the film would work better without it. Producer Arthur Freed fought desperately to save the number. He argued passionately that the song provided the emotional foundation for Dorothy's entire journey. His persistence faced resistance from executives who saw only pacing problems rather than the song's deeper meaning. Eventually, Freed won the battle and the song returned to the final version. That decision proved crucial because Over the Rainbow became the heart of the film and won the Academy Award for Best Original Song. Imagine the movie without those opening notes and lyrics about bluebirds flying. This represents one of the most shocking near deletions in cinema history, a choice that would have stripped away the soul of a masterpiece. Number 17. Tin Man and Scarecrow role swap. The beloved characters almost looked completely different due to an unusual casting shuffle. Ray Bolger and Buddy Ebsen were originally assigned opposite roles from what ended up on screen. Bolger found himself cast as the Tin Man, while Ebsen prepared to play the Scarecrow. Bolger pushed hard to switch parts because he felt the Scarecrow suited his performance style better. He believed his loose physical comedy would work perfectly for the straw-stuffed character. After discussions with studio executives, the actors agreed to swap roles. Ebsen accepted the change without complaint and began work as the Tin Man instead. Of course, his time in that role ended dramatically due to the aluminum makeup poisoning that hospitalized him. The role swap reveals how close the film came to having a completely different dynamic between two of its most important characters. Bolger's instincts about which part fit him proved correct, creating the floppy, charming Scarecrow fans remember. Number 18. Judy's body binding for innocence. Studio demands extended beyond diet restrictions to physical manipulation of the teenage star's appearance. MGM insisted that Judy Garland look as young and undeveloped as possible for her role. Wardrobe staff tightly bound her chest, with restrictive garments designed to flatten her figure completely. The binding caused significant discomfort during long filming days. Garland wore corsets and other constraining devices that made breathing difficult and movement painful. She had to perform energetic dance numbers while restricted by layers meant to hide any sign of physical maturity. This treatment formed part of the studio's broader campaign to control every aspect of her image. Executives obsessed over making her appear younger than her actual age, regardless of the physical and emotional toll. The girl singing about rainbows and distant dreams was literally being squeezed into an artificial shape. Such manipulation represents another disturbing example of how Hollywood controlled young performers during this era. Number 19. Judy's troubled mother at home. The pressures facing the young star didn't begin or end at the studio gates. Judy Garland's relationship with her mother created additional stress that complicated her emotional state throughout production. Her mother had pushed unhealthy patterns even before MGM took control of her daughter's life and career. The maternal influence reinforced many of the studio's worst practices. Instead of protecting her daughter from excessive demands, her mother often sided with executives and their requirements. This lack of support left Garland feeling trapped between two sources of pressure with nowhere to turn for genuine care. Years later, Garland made painful comments about her mother being her real wicked witch. That devastating comparison reveals the depth of betrayal she felt from someone who should have been her protector. The combination of studio control and family dysfunction created unbearable conditions. Personal trauma at home merged with professional exploitation on set, leaving the teenage actress vulnerable from every direction. Number 20. Clark Gable's indirect director shakeup. The production became entangled in Hollywood politics involving another massive film shooting simultaneously. Gone with the Wind required Victor Fleming's attention, creating ripple effects that impacted the director lineup. Major stars like Gable wielded enormous influence over studio decisions about which directors worked on which projects. The power dynamics between competing productions meant that creative talent got shuffled around based on star preferences and executive priorities. Fleming's involvement with both films created scheduling conflicts that affected how scenes were planned and executed. One production's needs directly influenced the other's creative direction. This situation added another layer of instability to an already troubled shoot. Directors came and went, partly because of decisions happening on completely different sound stages. The film got caught up in broader studio politics that had little to do with the story being told. Such behind-the-scenes maneuvering shows how even beloved classics emerged from chaotic Hollywood business dealings rather than smooth creative processes. Number 21. Handmade Oz sound effects. Every magical sound emerged from the creativity of analog craftspeople working without modern technology. Foley artists created the film's entire audio landscape using everyday objects manipulated in inventive ways. The pre-digital era demanded ingenuity and experimentation to bring the fantasy world to life. Leather straps creaked and groaned to produce the Tin Man's metallic movements. Hay bags rustled and scraped together for the Scarecrow's straw-filled shuffle. Metal tubes were whooshed through the air to create the threatening sound of the witch's broomstick in flight. Each effect required careful timing and multiple attempts to match the on-screen action perfectly. Sound technicians spent hours finding just the right materials and techniques to convince audiences they were hearing magic. The attention to detail in these handcrafted sounds helped sell the illusion. Those convincing audio elements came from patient artists working with simple materials rather than computer-generated perfection. Number 22. Dorothy's abandoned blonde look. The iconic character nearly appeared completely different in the finished film. Early test footage shows Judy Garland wearing a blonde wig, heavy makeup, and a costume that looks nothing like the final blue gingham dress. Studio executives wanted Dorothy to match the book illustrations more closely with golden hair. The blonde design tested poorly and felt wrong for the character's wholesome appeal. Producers decided to scrap the entire look and start fresh with a more natural approach. They reshot all the test footage after settling on Garland's natural brown hair and simpler makeup. Surviving photographs of the blonde version surprise modern viewers who only know the familiar Dorothy. The drastic change shows how much the character's visual identity evolved during pre-production. That early abandoned look would have created a completely different impression. The decision to embrace simplicity over artificial glamour proved essential to making Dorothy feel real and relatable to audiences. Number 23. Witch casting that never happened. The Wicked Witch almost looked entirely different due to an unexpected casting change. Gail Zondergaard initially won the role and prepared to bring a glamorous, beautiful villain to the screen. The studio originally envisioned an elegant, seductive antagonist rather than a frightening one. When Zondergaard saw the intense prosthetic designs and harsh green makeup required, she quit immediately. The actress had no interest in being transformed into an ugly, terrifying creature. Her departure forced producers to completely reimagine their approach to the character. Margaret Hamilton stepped into the abandoned role and embraced the scary, non-glamorous version. The shift from beautiful villain to frightening witch changed the entire tone of the antagonist. Hamilton's cackling, hook-nosed performance became the definitive screen witch that terrified generations. That major design pivot happened only because the original actress refused to sacrifice her appearance for the part. Number 24. Oz's 21st Century Revival Wave. The classic film continues finding new life through modern reinterpretations and technological innovations. The Wizard of Oz resurfaces constantly in contemporary culture through immersive theatrical shows, high-definition remasters, and creative tie-ins like the musical Wicked. Each generation discovers fresh ways to experience the story. Recent years brought technological reinterpretations, including elaborate projection spectacles and virtual reality experiences. Museums and theaters present the film with enhanced audio and restored color that makes it look better than original audiences ever saw. Special anniversary screenings pack theaters with fans eager to see it on the big screen again. The story's ability to reinvent itself for new audiences keeps it perpetually relevant. From IMAX presentations to interactive exhibits, the film adapts to whatever format emerges. This continuous revival demonstrates that the appeal extends far beyond nostalgia. Modern technology breathes new energy into the 85-year-old production, ensuring future generations will follow the yellow brick road. Number 25. The most watched film ever made. The cultural impact extends beyond popularity into genuine historical significance. Institutions like the Library of Congress recognize The Wizard of Oz as the most viewed film in history. More people have seen this movie than any other ever produced, a remarkable achievement spanning decades. The film earned permanent preservation in national and international registries dedicated to protecting cultural treasures. Organizations worldwide acknowledge its importance to cinema history and popular culture. It frequently tops lists of the greatest films ever made, competing with works from every era and genre. Television broadcasts introduced the movie to new viewers every year for generations. Home video formats from VHS to Blu-ray kept it accessible and popular through changing technology. The sheer number of times people have watched Dorothy's Journey makes it a shared cultural touchstone. Its massive viewership confirms that the troubled production created something that transcended its chaotic origins to become truly immortal. A film born from chaos, danger, and studio cruelty somehow transformed into one of cinema's most cherished treasures. The toxic makeup, hazardous stunts, exploited performers, and constant director changes should have produced a disaster. Instead, all that turmoil created a masterpiece that has touched billions of hearts across generations. Young Judy Garland endured physical manipulation and emotional pressure that no teenager should face, while actors suffered through poisonous cosmetics, suffocating costumes, and brutal heat that pushed their bodies to breaking points. The production's troubled history makes the finished film even more remarkable. Somehow the artistry survived executive interference, casting disasters, and technical limitations to create joy that endures decades later. Every viewing carries the weight of sacrifice hidden behind the rainbow, reminding us that even beloved classics emerge from real human suffering. If you enjoyed discovering these secrets, hit that like button and subscribe for more behind-the-scenes stories from classic films. What's the most shocking fact you learned about this production? Share your thoughts in the comments below.